Hello. Hey, it works. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to Delapre Abbey. For those of you who it's your first time, this is a site of 900 years of history, a former Cluniac nunnery, one of the only two nunneries of the Cluniac order in this country. So it's very special. Also, as we would say, the site of one of the most prominent battles of our time, the Battle of Northampton, and now in 2017-18, lovingly restored and opened for public use. Delapre Abbey Preservation Trust has been in existence since 2012 and worked with the local authority to bring this beautiful site back to use. And we are really honoured to be able to host and welcome you all today. And I think when we were discussing this, if you'd have said we'd have filled the dining room, I'd have probably laughed and chuckled a little bit, but it is brilliant. And hello to all of those online as well. First of all, a big thank you to Historic England, the Council for British Archaeology, Southampton Institute for Arts and Humanities, and also our host this evening, because they've given the venue for free, very gracious of a local authority during these times. And a thank you to the staff, Desi, Linda, Chloe, Claire, Amanda, Eleanor, Pete, all the team from Delapre Abbey have made this possible over the next couple of days. And thank you all for coming and being interested in what I personally, and is one of my sort of passion projects. I started here. Actually, my first job here at Delapre Abbey was to furlough the staff. I got released by the Culture Trust to do that. And it was sort of sitting in these sites thinking, what are these sites without people? And thinking about how we could use our spaces in a different way. We're quite blessed that, we were never bequeathed a large collection, a large archive. So we've been able to play with these spaces in a different way and reimagine. And Northamptonshire is the county of squires and spires. And so there's an oversupply, if you want to talk general economics, about treasure houses and beautiful places you can go. And so we have to be slightly different to ensure that we remain relevant and relatable to our audience. So before I do a little bit of talk about our journey, and sorry for those who have heard me, sorry Bev, this is probably the second time you've heard this, so I don't know, do some emails. Do a bit of housekeeping. So we're not expecting a fire today, but next year is the 350th anniversary of the Great Fire of Northampton. And so where we will be metaphorically lighting up the Abbey with projection for that. But if the fire alarm does go, please go by nearest exit. You've got one at the rear, this one, and then make your way out to the front where we will gather at the muster point. Toilets are signposted. You've got one just directly out here, and then one, you've got the toilet block, which is just down the stairs. If you have any questions, please speak to a member of staff or volunteers who've got their lanyards on. If they don't know the answer, they'll find someone who does. And also, please feel free to make use of the quiet space that we've got. There's a workspace up in the research room, so if you need to take a call or you just want some time out, again, just speak to the staff and they'll direct you. And then we have first aiders and mental health first aiders on site. So again, just speak to the staff. A lot of people in here. I think the rain has stopped for the day, so feel free to go stretch your legs, take a breather in the beautiful outdoors. And so our wellbeing journey has sort of developed over the last 3 years, and we're at a really interesting point. And we've done quite a bit of learning and reflection. And I think that's why we're actually really excited to be able to share with you and listen to all of your bits of reflection and learning. Because when you're trying to make a positive impact on people's lives, I generally believe we owe it to them to shortcut to success, to really think about how can we make our programs more effective, more efficient, how we can respond to their needs in a greater and meaningful way. And I've heard it said many times is the sector's been doing this for years, and it's true. We've been doing good quality community engagement for decades. And it's, the well-being is probably a lens that we look through because that's what we're having to play in terms of the policy game at the moment. And I think there isn't a sector who have really captured the need to work with communities, individuals in need like this sector, because we have been doing it for decades. And I think that's why it puts us in a really unique position. For us, we wanted to make this site, you know, it's a historic house, which can sometimes be quite austere. It can be intimidating. Physically, you've got to get up the drive. How could we make this site more relevant, relatable, and use wellbeing to ensure that this heritage that we share, which is the community's heritage, really is part of their everyday life? And so we've started a partnership. And when I started, if you'd have said you'd have spent more time with the physical activity department at the University of Northampton and not the heritage team, I'd have been like, I've never ran in my life. But, you know, it just shows it's what have we been here, 3 years, and we're just starting to do the partnership agreement with the Historic Humanities team now. But we've been working with the sports and exercise colleagues at the university over these past years, looking at research, looking at evidence, looking at need. When I was doing my interview prep, I was speaking to the local authority about what were the health needs in this area, and it's really distinct. There's some key things that really stick out. And actually, it's about how can we work to deliver a solution, hopefully. And in terms of the research we were doing with the University of Northampton, we are now seeing the impact of that research. You know, we're in that beautiful position where we can go, you said, this is what's happening. We had Active Travel England down, and that was only made possible because we started to, you know, do intercept surveys with the university, gate counts to see how people were using the site, how many people were coming here to enjoy the 550 acres as part of their daily routine. And thankfully, then we've been able to submit a bid with the local authority to secure £750,000 for tarmac across site, which, you know, doesn't please everyone. And, you know, it is a shared space, but it was great to have Active Travel England here last week with all the partners, because a lot of what we do is in partnership with other organisations to really see the fruits of that evidence base. And then now we've got a knowledge exchange programme, and I love data, and I don't know if Simon's here from Wayfield already, but he's doing our evaluation on the stables block, which we'll talk about. But through that knowledge exchange programme, we've been able to get £30,000 to have 2 years worth of licensing to start to look at mobile phone data, so we can start to benchmark how the site's being used, where people are going. And that does a really excellent thing of narrowing down to sort of 5 meters, so we can see what paths people are taking, and then how many people from the outside who come here, how many of them can come into the house, and how do we hook more people in to enjoy the heritage and building. And so we've been using that evidence base to bring partners on a journey to try and secure investment, to better use the resources, the people and the organisations, all with the effort to improve everyone's life and to improve the sort of general well-being of our community. It's we were fortunate to be one of the, I think it was about 30 organisations and partnerships that secured funding through the Thriving Communities Fund. And that, you know, relatively small amount of money for sort of what had turned out to be a 2-year programme, but that allowed us to pilot, to test. And there's something really quite cathartic. Life is this rehearsal. My previous career was in theatre and productions, and we constantly rehearse, so failure is accepted. And actually that allowed some soft failure for us to really refine what we did, allowed us to invest in community co-creation steering groups, and those sort of co-creation groups are what lead a lot of the programs that we do now. And so we're always responding to that need. And I think that enabled us to jettison, and we had this thirst to learn and more. And thank you to all of you who are in the room who have been really gracious, Elaine, you know, and so many of you have put up with me coming on a go and see. Had a lovely day at Beamish Museum, going down to Victorian, helter skelter, but also seeing the great work that Michelle's doing with their wellbeing in the community hut there. And everyone's been so generous. And so looking forward to us to be able to sort of learn a bit more. And for us, in our next development, we've got the 19th century stables development. There's a snazzy hashtag a stable future. Works 2 ways, creating a stable future for our community, but also really relevant in terms of some of the priorities coming out of NLHF at the moment, a financially stable future for the trust. And so we're looking at how we use sort of 12,000 square feet of dilapidated heritage assets, currently a bit of a debate as to heritage significance. Jenna, our conservation consultant at the back, is battling with our conservation officer and actually Historic England. So look forward to getting those contradictory supporting letters to support that planning application. But we've been delighted, AHF, NLHF, and Community Ownership Fund and SEMLEP and many trusts and foundations of supporting us in the development and hopefully the delivery phase. But that will create a wellbeing hub where we will use our how we co-curate, how we co-locate organisations. So we'll be basing through General Practice Alliance, who are the local social prescribing facilitators. Their office will be based here, and we all know how hard it is to get sometimes to contact your social prescribing link workers. They won't be able to escape us. But that's not just for us, that's for the other partners. We are the home to the local active trust. We've got a charity comms company. We've got a VR company who actually moved in last week, and they use VR for wellbeing. And what's quite interesting is that co-location is just happening at such, the benefits of it, sorry, are happening at such speed. So the VR company moving in a week, and they're already speaking to the charity comms, they're already speaking to the active trust, GPA are linked in with them, and other partners thinking about how can we help, how can we learn, and how can we roll that out. And so by having a mix of wellbeing providers, and also we're really excited, we have a current community space which isn't great for safeguarding, it's on 2 floors. We're going to create a new community space which will be fit for purpose, and we'll offer that, the beautiful thing that some of our users, when we provide low and no cost community space, is that they love the ability to be indoors and then to escape out into the nature. And so we're providing that. And there are sign-up sheets on the welcome desk for if you want a abridged tour. I have to be clear, it's not the full tour. You've got to come back for the full tour, and I would love that, and the volunteers would very much love that. But they're kindly put on a bridge tour of the house. And also Amanda and Jenna will be doing a bit of a quick tour of the stables as well. So please sign up to them, and you'll be able to do that, and you'll hear a bit more about the stables. But again, didn't want to say too much, but thank you once again, and really excited to see and hear all the great work and all the learning and connecting, because that's really important. So thank you very much.
Well, hi everyone, welcome. Thanks, Richard. I have to say 2 things I want to say before I start. Firstly, if you see me taking photographs, I am not the professional photographer. And so far, all the ones I've taken inside are a bit blurry. So don't fret. The chances are of you being on a photograph are very slim. However, there may be somebody who's better at taking photographs around later. And if you don't want your photograph taken, please approach a member of staff so that we can make sure that we abide by everybody's personal preferences. Secondly, I just want to say thank you to Richard for the introduction. But the one thing Richard hasn't said is that absolutely none of this would have happened without Delapre. So one of the reasons that this conference is free is because this is all free. So this is not actually free. It's probably cost enormous amounts of time, money and effort. But to us as the recipients, that is why all of the food, all of the venues, all of the tours, everything has been provided. He's negotiated the work with the Guildhall so that we get that for nothing. Thank you very much. And I think it's just really important to make that, because it's really unusual to find a partner that is so willing to have that kind of leadership role and to really involve so many people within the broader community rather than just the local community. So I really wanted to kind of reinforce our thanks. So some of you will know me. I see lots of happily familiar faces, but I'm Linda Monkton. I'm head of Wellbeing and Heritage at Historic England. And Historic England created this post. I can't actually remember how long I've been at this post, but we're going to call it 5 years for quits. But and at the time, it just felt like the obvious thing to do. I'd been working in social impacts work, looking at the social impact of the historic environment. But I kind of look back at it now, and actually, with all due respect to my own organisation, that it was really insightful that they decided to put a resource behind looking at wellbeing in a dedicated fashion, rather than just assuming that everybody in their everyday jobs was magically going to know how to apply some of this work to what they did without any sort of driving force, if you like. And I'm really lucky that after a year and a half of doing it part-time on my own, I was given DESI, which totally changed my life. And without whom also, without her and Claire, there's definitely no way this conference would have happened. So we then published a Wellbeing and Heritage strategy. This isn't a history of Historic England, so don't panic. But we we published a Wellbeing and Heritage strategy in 2022, which was a really important moment for us because it was really about putting that line in the sand organisationally and corporately. And as a result of that work, we have a very, very large delivery plan, it has to be said. But the important thing for me is that we now have a key performance indicator about wellbeing for our organisation. And that helps us, I think, as an organisation, make sure that we are embedding wellbeing outcomes into the work that we do. And that is a primary goal of the strategy. Our role at Historic England in this space is not to go, oh, we know how this all works. Let's go out and tell the world, look how brilliant we are. Because actually we don't. We're learning as much, if not slower than some of the people in this room that have been doing it for a really long time. So one of the things that we thought would be really great is if we could help bring some people together to do some of that shared learning. And as a result, we had a very fruitful conversation with the Council for British Archaeology and decided that between us, we would facilitate a kind of working group to try to encourage people to come together and share their experiences and work out what are the gaps, what do we know that's going well, what isn't going well. And out of that, which is a collaboratively run event, which is completely free to join, anybody can sign up, you just turn up, you just get on the mailing list, and then we'll tell you when the meetings are. Out of that came all sorts of things, task and finish groups, and then we now have a community of practice in social prescribing and a community of practice in research and evaluation. And then there was this little mumble that it would be really nice if we all got together for a kind of, maybe like a networking event. We could even call it a conference. And we kind of thought at that time we'd get like 20 or 30 people in a room and it would be really easy. And then it kind of like exploded into this thing, which is really, really exciting and really brilliant, because I think it shows that there's actually a really huge groundswell of excitement to share the knowledge that is going on and make sure that people are actually understanding what's going on in other parts of the sector. So that's kind of how we ended up here. So it really is a shared enterprise between the four partners that Richard has already identified of Southampton Institute of Arts and Humanities, CBA, us and Delapre. It's also, I don't know, I sometimes worry that people see Historic England on the banner and think that somehow it's this big corporate, hugely funded enterprise and that we're some kind of commercial organisation. None of those things are true. We're not a commercial organisation and we have many, many competing priorities. So the money that we put into this was actually just to do bursaries to bring people here that otherwise couldn't afford to come. But everything else has really been provided by the efforts of the volunteers, Desi, Claire, and as I said, Delapre. And so it's really, really been very, very collaborative. And somebody from the Southampton Institute of Arts and Humanities will talk later at the Guildhall as well to just kind of introduce their work. I can't read my notes about what I was going to say, but don't worry, it's not all of this. That's the one thing you need to be really, really aware of. So I was just going to do my version of housekeeping is just to make sure that everybody knows where everything is. So we've already had the kind of like air hostess bit from Richard, so thanks for that. This is room 1, okay? This is room 1. Everything that's on the table that's happening in room 1 is in here. Circulation is through the corridor that you've been down towards the tea area. Tea and coffee and drinks are available all day. So you're parched, you're frustrated, you need to write an email and you want a drink on the way back, that's fine, just grab it. Once you're in that space looking out towards the gardens, room 2, which is the library, is on your right. And room 3, which will be where the workshops are held, is on your left, which is actually through here. But it's probably easier most of the time if we can actually properly follow the circulation. Little health and safety thing, because I'm wearing heels and I noticed this earlier. Just be careful of the carpet in the workshop room, a little bit slippery. Just, I will probably be the person that falls over, but just in case it's somebody else. The other thing to say is that there's posters of Historic England work and some other posters that are all in the coffee area. Please look at them, look at the QR codes, follow those up. There'll be presentations online that are related to those. There is an absolutely amazing exhibition that's been put up by the guys here from Kirkham. So Historic England was involved in a High Street Heritage Action Zone in Kirkham in Lancashire. Part of that programme was a kind of cultural consortium, and all of the High Street Heritage Action Zone had a cultural consortium. But the Kirkham one, before it even started, approached me and said, we really want this to be health and well-being. We want this to be heritage delivers this, rather than just community engagement in a sort of perhaps a more serendipitous level. And the work that that was commissioned between me and the local authority and our regional office kind of created this amazing feasibility study by Helen Sheehan, who's here. And then Sue Flowers, who's been delivering that for her and with her, and other people from Kirkham here that can talk about it. But if you go down the medieval corridor, it's obvious. Firstly, the first thing I have to say is that there's all these amazing hangings down there, and you're going to walk past and think, this is Delapre stuff. It just looks so perfect, like it's always been here. That is stuff that Kirkham put in yesterday, but now we're thinking, like, you really need to have something there because it looks so amazing. And this is all that, and then you turn right into the kitchen. Some of you would have been there already. The amount of material that's been developed by the community through the work that Sue and Helen have been doing in Kirkham is phenomenal, and I really recommend going to have a look at it because it's really amazing. You are allowed to take tea and coffee down there, I checked, so you can get your coffee and then mooch around, have a look around. There'll be people in the room to talk to. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that as well. We are really pleased that we're able to live stream this again. Thank you, Richard. We were massively oversubscribed for the conference. We were slightly taken aback by the amount of no, but I want to come too after we'd sort of filled all the chairs. So welcome to anybody who is looking at this on live stream. We're really happy to have you, and hopefully this will make not just it more accessible now, but also that there'll be a bit of legacy for the project, which will be really, really helpful. So that's probably basically enough for me. I think I was just going to end by saying there are some HE colleagues in the room that I've talked to about this as well. I think there's a very strong group of people in Historic England that feel that well-being is, yes, it is a policy issue, but it's also a really core part of our social justice. That this is about addressing inequalities in society, not just making happy people happier, and that we need to find really good ways to do that. And we know that there's lots of brilliant things going on at the moment, and this opportunity here is for us to learn from each other on how to do that. So I guess my parting comment is that we're all ambassadors for Wellbeing and Heritage, and I'm just really delighted to have you all here so that we can share that work together. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Richard. I'm not entirely sure how I follow both of those. You've stolen all of my lines. I suppose really what struck me most was that conversation about collaboration. And for me, the important thing about collaboration is it doesn't have to be equal. One person's 5% can make a project's 100%. And it's actually understanding that. And again, through the Heritage, Wellbeing and Heritage Working Group, we've actually got quite adept at doing this, finding out where our skills and our talents actually lie by having really open and frank conversations. And some of those conversations are also being really honest about what we're not good at. And just being happy about that. And then collectively, you can really get a sense of achievement. So the conference ended up happening really rapidly, and its organisation. And I know we've thanked lots of people already, but I am still going to thank Claire and Desi, because I don't think Linda and I would have a sense left in us without the pair of them. Literally, when 80 submissions landed on the door, it was, oh gosh, how do we deal with all of this? And what was absolutely our overriding aim was to try and get as many people in the room as possible. So your event today and tomorrow is going to be hectic. It's going to be a whirlwind. You can potentially go from room 1, 2 to 3 in a matter of hours. You can go round the house. You can go and chill out. You can do a silent disco if you want to. Okay. The idea here is that we want to listen as much as possible. But there is a fundamentally important concept that has to come out at the end of this, which is what's next. What does this really mean for this subject we've now started talking about so wonderfully and so collectively? What is it we need to make ourselves more effective? What do we actually need to make some of the ideas we've got more sustainable? That whole concept of being more sustainable, embedding it, is really critical for the organisation I run at the moment, the Council for British Archaeology. This year is our 80th anniversary, and we're obviously thinking about what have we done over the last 80 years, but what might we do for the next 80 years? And for archaeology, I think there's a really important concept that actually how we perceive what we do is going to have to fundamentally shift as we move forwards. One challenge of being environmentally sustainable is digging a hole in the ground actually isn't terribly good for the environment. So what might we do in the future if some of that activity actually starts to tail off? What will archaeology be? For me, archaeology isn't the stuff in the ground. That literally is just stuff in the ground. It becomes archaeology when humans interact with it, when people bring questions to it, when we bring an inquiring mind to it. And I'm really interested in how we bring people to archaeology, or we take archaeology to people. What's that interface mean? What does that connection mean? Archaeology has a really challenging past. It has legacies that are deeply troubling. It is also one of the least representative parts of heritage in the UK. So actually, how do we change those things? How do we build a better sense of belonging? How do we actually create a discipline, a subject, a conversation that anyone can actually contribute to? Partly, we need to understand what some of the barriers are to that participation. And that's where conferences like this become really important. Because this isn't actually about showcasing all the great work. It's about understanding the barriers to anyone being able to participate in the activities that we are interested in. And fundamentally, for me, it's about shifting the perception of heritage in archaeology. Yeah, it's about actually saying, maybe it could be something else, maybe it could be something different. And putting people at the heart of that conversation is absolutely fundamental. You know, when I come here, what I love is you are actually on the edge of Northampton, and there is a different conversation that actually goes on, and that you can actually create a discussion about what this place means in really quite, you know, often challenging circumstances. And pulling down those barriers becomes a really exciting and informative process, if we're willing to open up our minds to that conversation. So hopefully, over the next 2 days, we'll think about that concept of creating a sense of belonging. It's not actually heritage we want people to do, it's actually thriving people we actually want to engage with, and we want to understand how to do that. If people have the opportunity to thrive, then we will actually have a new form of heritage created for us. And I think that's really, really, really important. I think it's also really important to understand that not everyone actually wants to do it in the same way as we all want to do. So again, how we look at some of these issues around co-creation and actually freeing our own shackles to actually look at material we love from different perspectives is really, really important. So with these 80+ contributions, these 3 rooms, this amazing venue, all we really ask for you is just to get yourselves involved with what's going on with the conversations. And for those of you online watching remotely, we're really delighted that you can actually join us. You know, it was a real challenge just to get all the speakers in the same place for 2 days, almost filled the venue entirely, which is great. But in that concept, think about what's next. Think about what we want to challenge the policy panel this evening about. What do we need in terms of policy for the future moving forwards to actually make our work thrive and successful? I was given a little bit of housekeeping as well. I'm very pleased they've all said it twice already. But my one bit they didn't say is, yes, there is a silent disco. It's going to be outside, possibly weather dependent, but there are limited headsets, so it's going to be first come, first served. If you want one of the tours, please do sign up downstairs. So you have to be signed up to go on one of the tours. But for now, this is your conference. I'm delighted that Linda and I are just able to host it along with Richard and the Southampton Institute of Arts and Humanities. And we look forward to a cracking couple of days. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thanks everyone. You're going to see so much of me. You're going to be really bored of me by the end of this. I'm really sorry. So we've kind of finished a bit early, so go us. But that's good because we need a little bit of moving around time. So everything that's in this room, if you want to stay in this room for the next lot of sessions, that's the Putting People First Shifts in Heritage Policy, British Council, University of Lincoln and University of York. If you want to go to Equality, Diversity and Inclusion, that is in room 2. That is University of Exeter, a public historian and sociologist, and some archaeologists and volunteers from Swansea. So room 2 is the library. It's labelled as the library. Go through tea, grab a banana on the way, and pop into the library. So you've got a little tiny bit of wriggle room now to find your rooms, and we'll see you all later.